friends, I prefer to speak from here, not because I cannot stand up, but I want to make it an interactive one. So I'll make a few very brief comments, and then we can probably have some meaningful interaction. Otherwise, if you go into a lecturing mode, I don't think that's something that we all want on a Saturday morning. I want to make broadly 5 classes of remarks very quickly. Oftentimes, we are not putting our budgetary process in this country and public expenditure in the context of global expenditure, the rest of the countries, etc. One of the commonly heard comments, even in the State Assembly, I keep hearing it, is that we are a very highly taxed nation. Rubbish. We are a very lowly taxed nation. That's the way things are. As a country economically prospers, the tax ratio of the GDP rises. The total expenditure of the government of India, as presented in yesterday's budget, is about 18 lakh rupees, including 3,10,000 crores transfer of central share, state share of taxes. Altogether is 18 lakh crores on a nominal GDP estimated in the economic survey of 89 lakh crore rupees. That's a little over 20%. That's total expenditure, not taxation. If you take the taxation, if you take away the 530,000 crores or so of gross debt, it's under 13 lakh crore rupees. That's the total taxation of government of India, tax and non-tax revenue. I'm including non-tax revenue. Now 13 lakh crores on about 90 lakh crores, you can do the math. It's coming to about 15 or 16%. If you actually take away the non-tax revenue again, it comes down further. It's only about 12 to 13% of the GDP. In other words, among the large economies in the world, India has the lowest tax GDP ratio, something we all have to understand. If you look at India in the next 10 years, not today, yesterday's budget, some proposals, no paragraph 15 and clause A, this is all minutiae. But we have to really look at the bigger picture. We have to look at enlarging the tax base without undermining the economy. Maintaining fiscal discipline without undermining our needs for investment. If we don't look at it that way, I think we'll be in serious trouble in a fiscal sense and as the Indian state. If you include the state's expenditure, the expenditure of government of India, as I said, is 18 lakh crore rupees, and that includes the 3 lakh crore rupees transferred to the states by way of state share of taxes. Another 130,000 crores is transferred to states by way of the plan grants, etc. The government of India's plan grants, capital as well as revenue. That means about 440,000 crores are transferred by government of India to states. In addition, the states, this number I'm giving you only an off-the-cuff number, because unless you do a detailed analysis, we can't come up with a number, but my ballpark number is probably about 600,000 crores of the state's revenues. If you take Andhra Pradesh, the state's own tax revenues, and probably including a bit of non-tax revenues, of the order of about 70,000 crores, 65 to 70,000 crores. And therefore, assuming that in all of India, the total state tax ratio, tax incidence, along with the local governments, particularly in the big cities, Mumbai city has a significant revenue and things of that sort, it's probably, I could be wrong by about 10%, it's probably the order of about 600,000 crores. States' debts are of the order of probably about another 100,000 crores. I could be wrong by another small number. But we are looking at about 700,000 crores in addition spent by the states, in addition to the money given by the government of India. So we're looking at 25 lakh crore rupees public expenditure. So our total public expenditure on a 90 lakh crore GDP is 28% of the GDP, which still is one of the lowest in the world. Of this, 5.9% to the government of India's debt. The fiscal deficit is nothing but debt to the government of India. And probably another 3 to 3.5%, it keeps varying from state to state, is the state's debt burden, fiscal deficit. So you're looking at 5.9 plus 3 or 3.5, 8.9% is the fiscal deficit of the country. It used to be 10%, it came down a little bit, now it rose in the last year or so. If you take away 9% debt, that means 19% is the total tax burden in the country, in GDP. Before we look at the detail, I want you all to focus on this big picture. No modern nation can be run effectively unless there is a reasonable taxation and a fair taxation in order to be able to meet the commitments from national defense to roads to infrastructure to governance to courts to police to 100 things. And of course, unless this money is wisely and prudently spent, and unless the people who are the guardians and custodians of our public money do not plunder the public resources, whether it's monetary resources or the Indian natural resources, but they actually utilize it for the public good. That's what we all want. On both, we have problems. We have problems of resources, we have problems of utilization. That's the bigger challenge. Now, to come to specifics, what are the good things that I like? Notwithstanding your complaints, I think the tax proposals on the whole are reasonable and fair. Nobody wants to be taxed. All of us want low taxes. But there is no way the government is going to spend money without taxing. So let's be realistic. So if you have to raise some 40, 50,000 crore rupees extra revenue, I think what was done yesterday was a reasonable mix. You have to enlarge the service tax net. There's no substitute to that. With 59% of the economy in the services sector, you must realize 59% revenues from services sector. Today, how much are we realizing? The service tax total is about 190,000 crores or so. The expectation next year is probably another 30,000 crores or so from service tax, so 28 or 29,000 crores additional revenue. We're talking 220,000 crores. It's still peanuts, even as part of the tax revenue. Therefore, it's the right move. It's also a right move to go in for a negative list rather than deciding which to tax. A list of exemptions is given so that it becomes more and more non-discretionary, more and more transparent, more and more decent. So the direction is right. Now, specifics, I'm sure we all have some complaints, and I certainly do understand the angst about this Vodafone case. The government stand is that, look, this is a stand we've always taken, the courts have now stymied us, and therefore, as a one-off option, we had to go in so that we can get the tax money. We'll be in trouble. The industry's version is, look, if you now have retrospective effect of these tax laws, investment will be affected. There's all kinds of problems. Both are reasonable, and ultimately somebody has to take a decision. Let's see what will happen eventually, whether the courts will agree with this retrospective notion or not. We'll have to wait and see. But without going into those details, I think the broad mix of the direction in the taxes is not bad at all. A 2% enhancement in the service tax, but more important, spreading it across the service sector, but giving a list of exemptions, a negative list. And of course, withdrawing the excise stimulus package given earlier. We all know 8% rose to 10% last year, now to 12%. Again, we can say give us another year because the economy is now growing, but this is a matter of detail and timing. But the broad direction is right. We cannot seriously complain. There, of course, could be a reasonable ground to say that we have again gone back. For the past decade or so, from indirect taxes, we're going towards direct taxes, which is a good thing. Now it appears that this year's budget, we've gone back to indirect taxes, the more non-transparent way of raising revenues, and a relatively painless way of raising revenues. But look at it from the government's point of view. I'm seeing it in the State Assembly. Whatever be the tax you raise, whatever be the tariff you raise, there's always a hue and cry. Yesterday in some of the newspapers, I think day before yesterday, the railway budget, if you saw the headlines in Enodo, for instance, I might even name the newspaper, it's revolting. It's absolutely revolting. The banner headlines in the front page portraying the Prime Minister, the Railway Minister, the Deputy Chairman of the Planning Commission, and some other person, I don't remember who it is. I think Montek Singh Ahluwalia. as the four heads of a vicious snake, a terrible snake, and the great anti-national terrorists of this country, because they raised the tariff in railways by 2 paise for the poor per kilometer. Now we are being absurd. In a country where railways are 150 years old, they are fully depreciated, and a fully depreciated public asset of that kind, there must be a healthy surplus in order to be able to invest for the future if you want really the economy to grow. The railway share of the freight has come down from 80 to probably now 20% or thereabout. And the roads are stretched to the limit, the wear and tear of vehicles is enormous, fuel consumption is mounting by the day, and it's certainly not good for anybody in the country, and of course the pollution is increasing. If you really love the country, you don't want this to happen. You want the railways to do better. For the railways to do better, you require more money. More money comes not from the Prime Minister's pocket or not by printing currency notes, but by raising tariffs. There's no choice. The earlier option in India of the 1970s and 80s and even 90s of simply printing currency notes has been given up, as you all know by now, I'm sure. We are now no longer monetizing our deficits. We are actually going to the market, which is a good thing because there's a transparency. If the government is overspending, then there's a price for the government, for the country, for the economy. We all know. Instead of simply printing currency, not knowing what's happening, and then the mounting inflation and all kinds of evil consequences of excessive government expenditure without accountability, we are moving towards the direction of more transparency and market borrowings. In that context, I don't think that the tax proposals are terrible. I mean, we can always do some tweaking here and there, but I'm looking at the bigger picture. I think there is a healthy emphasis on infrastructure, in particular power, coal, and roads. When they say transport, they essentially mean roads, as we know, which is good again. We welcome it. Probably a little more is needed, but given the current fiscal compulsions, I don't know if much more could have been accomplished. But let's hope that this actually will happen, because the finance minister talked about 8,300 kilometers of road this year to be finalized. Last year he claimed some near 8,000 kilometers, which is the highest so far, which is good news if it really happens. But what bothers me is even more than the road sector, the power sector is in doldrums. Both electrical power and the coal, which cannot be seen in isolation, they are an absolute disgrace. Entirely because of the mismanagement of the governments over the years at the national and state levels. And the government of India has failed to exercise its authority under the Electricity Act. Today there is a legal instrument. The GOA has to tell the states, you cannot let the country's future to be held ransom to the short-term political expediency in states. Take the state of Andhra Pradesh, for instance. The party in power is the party in power in Delhi. And if that government doesn't have the gumption to say, look, you're violating the law as well as public prudence, and therefore this is not on, we don't care if you lose power. In any case, they may lose power. I mean, it's not that they're not, they're gaining power. So the notion that good politics has to be necessarily bad economics is something that all of us must very robustly shout against and fight against. This notion that if you want to win elections, you have to destroy the country is unacceptable because A, it's wrong, and B, even if it's technically true in the short term, it's morally unacceptable. We must tell them, we don't care a damn. This nation is not for you to be perpetuated in power. This nation is for us to have a better future, and therefore, you as our representatives should better do what's right for the country. I don't think that voice is heard. We are being too pragmatic. Even from the industry, I notice too much of pragmatism, too much of all right, I mean, that's the way it is. This is nonsensical. That's not the way it is, that's not the way it ought to be. If we do not know how to communicate to our people, tell them what is right in their best interest, and give them a real feel that, look, if I give up on free power, if I give up some of the freebie, I will actually get something better. If you don't know how to communicate and actually demonstrate that, then it's our failing. The people want these freebies not because they are satisfied with them, but because they don't think anything else will come. This is an important point we all must understand. People are given up on the government. Because nothing anyway is going to come to us, let's get something that is tangible, that is real at this point of time. Let tomorrow be damned. The only answer to that is prove to them that something tangible actually exists as an alternative which is better for their children. And that actually is deliverable, and it's delivered. Because of lazy